Bishop Hayes says, but as all this is so evident, right? All this is so evident, but will the truth that one must possess the true faith and be united to the Catholic Church, that this is the teaching of the Catholic Church. If it's so evident, as this is so evident, how comes it that some nowadays who profess themselves members of the Church of Christ seem to call this truth in question by continually pleading in favor of those who are not of their communion, proposing to excuses for them, using all their endeavors to prove a possibility of salvation for those who live and die in a false religion? So if this is such established truth, why is it that people continually try to make excuses for those outside the church, try to come up with reasons they can be saved, or reasons that this may not be true, or try to explain it away or whatnot? Okay, this teaching that there's no salvation outside the Catholic Church. Why is it they do this? Okay, and he says in his day, and nowadays. Well, it's not just nowadays. Keep in mind, Bishop Hay is writing in the 1800s. So the article I'm reading is from the 1800s, from by Bishop Hay. So it really hasn't changed. But Bishop Hay's addressing what's going on in his time, and he said what he says is that this is really just this is a move of the devil. The devil hates this doctrine, right? So the devil is constantly bringing to doubt, causing and rising doubt in the minds of people that they can be saved anywhere. That putting this poison into their head that you don't need to be a Catholic to save your soul, basically. So he says this is what the devil does. He brings this doubt in because he hates this doctrine. I mean, and you can only imagine that this would be such a hated doctrine, because if salvation is only found in the Catholic Church, then you would want to poison that truth. Okay, if you were the devil, to poison that truth in the mind so that people can think, oh, you can be saved anywhere you want. It's all good. So this is a constantly attacked and hated doctrine by the devil. So he gives 3 reasons. Just it seems more like his observations for why this is becoming an issue, or this is an issue in his days. And I think it's the same in our days too, basically. The first is he mentions that our relationships with others, right? Our relationships with those outside the church can affect us. So he says, as we live among those who are of another communion and often have the most intimate connections with them, they naturally and most laudably contract a love and affection for them. Right? It makes sense. So this makes them first sorry to think their friends should be out of the way of salvation. Then they proceed to wish and to hope that they may not be so. Hence, they come to call in question if they be so. And from this step, it's easy to grasp at every pretext to persuade themselves that they are not so. So let's just think of Catholics who go to a Protestant Christian school for some reason, or they're at home schools where they have a lot of Protestant friends, or things of that nature. They work around people who have another religion, different Protestants. I'm using Protestants as an example. They get along with these people. They have similar interests. They have similar moral values, and but they know that the church teaches, at least in his day, they know that the church teaches that there's no salvation outside the Catholic Church, and the Protestants probably know this too. So they will maybe ask them, hey, you're Catholic, what do you think, that I'm not going to go to heaven because I'm not a Catholic? And you begin to waffle, and you don't want to have this kind of, or you know the truth, but you see these people and you're great friends with them, and you're very similar. They say they love Jesus, you love Jesus, whatever. And so you begin to say, there's got to be another way. Like, that can't be true. And then you're willing to listen to any reason that will persuade you that they can be. So you're going to willing to listen to any argument that will persuade you that, yeah, they can be saved in that religion. That's okay. And so you're open. So you've already let the seeds of doubt into your own mind. Enter into your own mind. Because of the friendships that you surrounded yourselves with and your intimate connections with them. can leave you open and leave you vulnerable to being misled from the truth. The second he mentions is the prevailing attitude of the culture, right? The prevailing attitude of the culture is one of very liberal indifference. Okay? Says this attitude is everywhere present these days. This uncoveted mercy is found to be for God, for the Muslims, Jews, infidels. He says, which had never before been heard of among Christians. This idea that God loves everyone and that everyone's going to go to heaven. It doesn't matter what religion you belong to, as long as they love God and try to follow their conscience and do the right thing, they're going to be in heaven. And who are you to say that your religion's more important or better or the true one over this other person? Like, who are you to talk like that? And Bishop Hay says that this is the prevailing attitude of the culture, which had never been heard of or spoken of among Christians, because all Christians understood that there's only one true church, and outside of which there's no salvation. But now this attitude is prevailing in this liberal culture, okay? And this begins to affect the way people think, all right? He says, this is gilded over with a spacious character of liberal way of thinking and a generous sentiment, and it has become the fashion to think and to speak in this manner. So everyone's talking like this. It's just a way of thinking, Oh yeah, your religion's good, our religion's good, like we're all good. Everyone speaks this way. It says, now the fashion is a most powerful persuasion, which even good people are not always proof against. And when one hears these sentiments every day resounding in their ears, and anything that seems contrary to them ridiculed and condemned, this naturally clouds the understanding and discourages the mind from so much as wishing to examine the strength of these sentiments for fear of finding out the falsehood. And then it says, when for fear of being despised we wish anything to be true, the translation is very easy to believe to be true. And every sophisticated answer of reason in its favor is adopted without further examination or conclusion. So in other words, you don't want to be seemed odd or strange or weird or insensitive or hateful, or whatever, because you are going against the tide of the culture. And one way you can go against the tide of the culture is to say that your religion is the true religion and that every other religion is false and of the devil. All right. And that those who follow these deceptions and these lies are going to go to hell. And that there's no faith and that there's no truth in these lies. Okay? That you cannot be saved in these other churches. You cannot be saved in these infidel religions. You can't be saved in any other religion. That there's only one true religion, and that's the Catholic religion. There's only one faith, and that's the Catholic faith. And if you speak like this, you are very narrow-minded. Okay, you're like you just sound odd, Like you said, this is the true religion. This is the right religion. This is the only religion. This is the one established by Jesus Christ. If you want to save your soul, if you want to go to heaven. It's not guaranteed that you will be in heaven if you're a Catholic, okay? Because you can fall away. But it's certain that you will not go to heaven if you reject the church and if you're outside of it. That's a certainty. So, keep in mind you start talking like this on shows, or you go talk like this among wherever. People are just gonna think you're very narrow-minded, and there's a lot of this. This isn't the only example of things that could get things that you could go against the cultural tide that people would call you a hater for. But Bishop Hayes is speaking regarding this issue, that when you begin to have a very exclusive mindset of your faith, people start looking at you oddly, and so you're willing to not embrace it, right? And you're willing to think like, I don't want to be different. I don't want to be different. I don't want to appear different. I just want to live my life and go along to get along. And this is going to be most influential to those who really don't have the truth, the Catholics that are more cultural. Okay, so that's the second reason he mentions, is that the cultural tide, the way of speaking, is very influential, and basically, this peer pressure, is powerful. The third thing he mentions is sort of like a worldly interest. You have a motive. You have an interest in you have an interest in others not converting to the true faith because their influence might affect you. He says worldly interest also very often occurs with its overbearing influence to produce the same end. He says a member of the Church of Christ sees his separated friend in power and credit in the world and capable of being a great service to him and his. He knows, should he embrace the true faith, he would lose all his influence and become unable to serve him. Now, this makes him cool in wishing his conversion, but the thought that his friend is not in the way of salvation pains him. Okay. He therefore begins to wish he could be saved as he is in his own religion. Hence, he comes to doubt, but that he may, and gladly adopts any show of proof to make him think as he will. So, for whatever reason, this particular person can be of a great influence to you. Like, I don't know, maybe you're a bishop, or maybe you're leadership, or a Catholic person, just businessmen, and whoever you're working with is a great influence and assists with your business because he has other contacts. But if you don't want to upset the apple cart, and maybe he converts to the faith, and if he converts to the faith, somehow he'll lose his influence and power where he's at. So it would affect you. So you're like, well, I don't really want to talk about this with him. But then, maybe there's another way. Maybe whatever. So you begin to rationalize in your mind, and you basically come up with any argument that liberal Catholics will bring to persuade you that yeah, you can be saved outside the Catholic Church. Yeah. Well, if that person's saying it, then it must be true. So I'm gonna embrace it because it's convenient for you to embrace, basically. So any liberal modernist Catholic will come around and say whatever he says, and then you say, yeah, I'll go along with that because it's convenient for you to go along with it, and you're already kind of molded already in that direction. And that's what Bishop Hayes says. He says, it is true indeed that all these reasons would have little influence with a sincere member of the Church of Christ who understands his religion and has a just sense of what it teaches him on his head. Yeah. I think, though, that anybody can be susceptible to this. So I think certainly people who have faith, believe the faith, who want to live the faith, will be less susceptible. But anybody susceptible to this, to the lies of the devil. Not disagree with the great Bishop Hay, but I'm just saying. It says, but the great misfortune of many who give into these loose ways of thinking and speaking is that they are ignorant of the grounds of their religion. Okay, so the people who really give into this are ignorant, really don't have much faith. Maybe cultural Catholics, and I think I could agree with this. They do not examine the matter to the bottom. In other words, they don't really go through it thoroughly. They don't examine this truth thoroughly. They don't examine their faith thoroughly. It says, and if once they begin to be infected by the spirit of the mode, they're unwilling to examine. So they're not. So prior, they're not really. They're already in an attitude of they're just indifferent cultural Catholics. And once they begin infected by the lies by the influence of their friends, by the culture, and their own self-interests, then they're not willing to know. Now the devil's already got a hold on them, right? Then it says they get upset if any zealous friend, he says, should attempt to undeceive them. Yeah, this radical friend of theirs, tries to teach them, hey, this is what the Catholic Church actually teaches. They get offended. They get mad. They get angry. They snap back. you know. And then it says, and grasping at those miserable sophisms which are alleged in favor of their loose way of thinking. They grasp at any argument from these liberal modernist people to allow them to embrace the contrary position, at least the true position, because it favors, it's what they want to believe. It says they refuse to open their eyes to the truth and even look at the reasons which support it. So basically, this is what Bishop Hayes. That's basically what Bishop Hayes says. Like, why this is always constantly brought to doubt? Well, because this teaching is hated by the devil. It is. I mean, the number one thing is for the salvation of souls, and if we say, if he can bring a doubt into the minds of where that salvation can be found, which is in Christ's Holy Catholic Church, then he's going to do that, and it's going to be constantly attacked. So, that's what Bishop Hayes says. These are his observations. Ave Maria.